Hi there. Thanks for clicking on this video. I'm really grateful that you're here. I've been learning a lot in this past season. I'm very sleep deprived with my now 6-month-old. I also felt some time needed to pass before I sat down and made videos like this again. Didn't have the capacity to do it, and so I'm really grateful for those of you who stuck around, who have been praying for us, who have been waiting. I'm happy to be back with you, and I hope that everything that is shared will edify anybody who clicks on this video and is seeking some kind of wisdom, some kind of guidance, some kind of comfort in knowing that you're not alone in the thoughts that come to your mind and in the struggles you might be facing. I spent many years thinking that I was the only one dealing with these problems. I was the only one suffering. It's just not true. All of us do at some point, especially if you are a wholehearted believer devoting your life to following in the footsteps of Jesus. You're going to face troubles. You're going to face conflict. There's going to be resistance on your life pretty much until the coming of Christ. And that's okay. This is how we get through it, by seeking out answers, finding them, and applying them to our life. So I hope that whatever I share, guided by the Spirit, will be helpful to you. Have you ever found yourself months, maybe even years, on the other side of something really hard? A season of difficulty that really tested you, that really changed you. An amount of time has gone by, you're in a new season, and oftentimes when you're in a new season that is of similar or even greater difficulty, you look back on those seasons of past and you're like, oh, I just wish that I could just go back to that time of my life because it really wasn't that bad. I had ABC and that made me feel somewhat secure, and right now I have no control and I feel no security. Well, guess what? I feel that, and it is something that I have learned that I have to lay down at the feet of the Lord every day, because my mind will take me places that I do not need to go. When you recognize that these times of testing are put in place to refine us, to deepen our anchor of faith, to build hope, you can take those tight fists and open them sometimes quicker. But it does take practice, and it does take yielding, and that doesn't come naturally to us because we operate oftentimes in our flesh, and we want to feel like we are keeping things under control and we have got this figured out, we are prepared. Especially if you are a mom watching this and you have checklists for every day. Maybe you're like me, I check things off the list. It makes me feel very accomplished. Well, you cannot do that in life. You just can't. And that's very hard. But I want to talk to you about a group of people in the scriptures that the Lord highlighted to me this morning when I woke up from a very sleepless night with my 6-month-old and basically was feeling like I didn't realize how hard this was going to be, and now I can't go back. I need to know that you are at least here with me because I feel so many things. And the Lord gave me this. He told me Exodus 14. And I forgot what was Exodus 14 because I've been reading a lot of like 1 Samuel. I had been in the Gospels for a while, and so Exodus 14, I opened it up and lo and behold, it is where the Israelites were telling the Lord, we changed our mind. We do not feel like dying in the wilderness. It feels as though we should have just stayed in Egypt as slaves, and that would have been better. And the Lord just told them one key thing, and we will get to that in just a minute. So let's just read this for ourselves together. Exodus 14, verse 10. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, 'Leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness.'" But Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid." It sounds like my husband. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. Okay. That's my husband talking to the people of Israel, and it's very annoying when someone just tells you, just don't be afraid. Just don't be. That's it. It's simple. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people, get moving. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over the sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground." So he's about to do an incredible miracle. And I have no idea that the Lord is even capable of this. They have seen him protect them from plagues. They have seen him deliver them from slavery of 430 years out of Egypt from a very evil man. They've already seen those things happen, and that is great and glorious. But he's about to do one of the greatest miracles of all of history that, little do they know, is going to be talked about from generation to generation to generation on both sides of the story, on the chosen and the enemy. And all they're worried about is how they were basically led into a trap and they should have just stayed in Egypt as a slave. It would have been much better in their mind because, as you know, things seem a little bit like the grass is greener on the other side when you are faced with a moment in time where you feel like there's no way out. They literally see the enemy coming back into the picture. They are standing at the edge of a sea with no plan of escape, and they start freaking out. I would, if I'm being honest, I would start freaking out too. But like I just said, they had no idea what was about to happen. And the response of the Lord to their crying and their complaining was, move forward. So if you go into the Hebrew text of this particular verse for the words move forward, go forward, it's going to be nasa, for sure.
Strong's H, 5265. Nasa.
It means to pull up the tent pegs. It means start on a journey, cause to blow, bring, get, forth, away, forward, onward. Take, journey, march, remove, set aside, forward. When they moved forward, they moved out of reach of the enemy forever. Verse 13 says, "But Moses told the people, don't be afraid. Stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again." It was done. All they had to do was be obedient and move forward, not look back, not long for the things that used to be, not spend time sitting there thinking about what could have been if they stayed. That's not what the Lord spoke for their future. And so many times we let our minds go to a place of imagination, really. Oh, it could have been so much easier if I did this, or if I did this. You didn't, okay? This is where you're at. Because you knew back then what the Lord was asking of you. And you followed and you obeyed. You walked with him. You sat with him. You worshiped him. And it led you here for a reason. Don't doubt your path. And yes, we stumble sometimes. Yes, we make mistakes. But he redeems it. So don't waste time thinking about decisions that you didn't make. Or that you feel like you should have. Or it's okay. Just go forward. That's all he's asking of you, is to just move forward. Pick up your tent, move forward. There's something better ahead. It's that simple. And oftentimes we complicate it in our mind because we just get stuck there. Like writers and musicians and people like that, we get stuck in our brain because it's our place. We go to the place and we create things. But sometimes we can create things that really harm us. And I am learning to not go to that place. It can go there, especially with my journey of postpartum depression. It's been hard. Some of that isn't anything that I can control because when you are a woman who has had multiple children and surgeries and multiple rounds of antibiotics. Your gut health affects your mental state, your hormones, all the things working against you. And so you have to be very intentional in like covering yourself in prayer and asking the Lord to lead you into places of peace for your mind. And if we are not intentional in that, it is so fast for the enemy to swoop in and be like, oh, but what if? There was this wonderful sermon that Bill Johnson did, and he spoke about this, about how fear will always attract whatever information is needed to legitimize its existence, and complaining functions out of that spirit of fear. These people needed help. These people later on needed water, they needed food, and so the Lord provided. And being in need is not a sin, but complaining about what you want and what you don't currently have, it completely disregards the blessing that you're already in. It clouds that view. I wrote this down earlier this morning when the Lord was showing me this. An unsurrendered heart cries for the security of slavery rather than the risk of faith. It doesn't want the responsibility of freedom, because there is a sense of security in being a slave and letting someone else rule over you and create their world with you in it. Because all you have to do is just keep your head down and obey. But that's not what the Lord wants for you. The Lord wanted so much more for the Israelites. And their whole journey through the wilderness, they were thinking about what they used to live in, even though they were slaves for 430 years. This is so silly, but it is something that hasn't really left us. Thousands of years later, we still struggle with it. So we have to be constantly careful of where we are letting our minds go and what we are valuing. Whenever you are faced with opportunities of testing, that is a place where you can reevaluate your value system and renew your faith. Because if you don't trust Him in a place of lack, you won't trust Him in a place of abundance. It's just true. And the sooner we can learn it, the sooner we can step into blessing. I'm human. I struggle every day with different things. I am tested daily just by having children. I'm gonna make other videos about this, but I struggled, like I mentioned, about depression multiple times throughout my life, overcoming that, overcoming anxieties, overcoming trauma, healing from trauma, not living with offense. I found security in materialistic things at one point, and when the Lord stripped that of me to cause me to be even more dependent on Him and to enter into what our friend called the manna program, I had to learn to live in a place of risk, faith. It requires me to not be prepared. It requires me to not have all the answers up front. It teaches me to yield my heart and to trust that God is going to fight for me and that He will lead me on dry, solid ground. We just need little reminders sometimes, and I hope that's what this has been. So the next time that thought creeps in and you start going to that place of thinking of all the things that you should have done differently and how you are convinced that your life would be in a much better place if you had made different decisions, it's not entirely so. And if you relinquish all of those things of complaining and of fear, maybe you'll actually see the magnitude of the miracle that you're already in front of. He's with you. He hasn't left. He's not going anywhere. But you have to choose to look at Him. You have to choose to follow Him instead of your flesh, instead of your fear. And I know it's hard. We can learn to do it together. If you would like to, I'm going to do the very YouTuber thing and just tell you to subscribe. Make sure that you have rung the bell so that you're notified every time I post, because there's going to be much more of this. Even more so, I would encourage you to go look at my Patreon page. I'm going to be starting somewhat of a blog on that space before releasing videos on YouTube and content of that sort. I kind of will be posting article-like posts. Also, the option for y'all to vote towards future content. So this will be kind of like an exclusive space for those who sow into our lives at whatever capacity. I just want to express my gratitude to those of you who have been supporting me in that way. It is a blessing. I want there to be something more for those of you who have been doing that and who would consider doing that. So my Patreon link is right below, and like I said, I'm gonna be posting kind of like a bi-weekly article for like a blog, and also, okay, I'm just gonna say it, I am going to be posting original stuff there when I feel finally ready, because I'm very close. If you want to be the first to hear demos, to read lyrics, I'm telling you all the things. Just make sure you are a member of the Patreon community. If you want daily content, hop over to my Instagram. It's melodyjoy.williams, and we can just interact on there as well. So many things, so many options. That is all for today. You are loved. You are loved, and I'm so grateful that you watched this video all the way through. Please like it. Please share it with those that the Lord puts on your heart that also needs to hear this message. And we will see you next time, and we will worship together again. Bye, friend.